I think the hardest thing we can ever do is see someone for who they really are, whether it's our parents, our friends, or ourselves. I am Jan, this is my Chan, and today we are here to recap The Ship of the Dead by Rick Riordan. We last left our heroes with an escaped Loki, and our heroes preparing to travel by sea to the old Viking lands to recapture the god of chaos himself. We find Magnus chased as he's getting a crash course on surviving dangerous aquatic adventures from Percy Jackson.
Who?
Annabeth and Alex are also there to show support and help. He is on the USS Constitution learning how to fall safely into the Boston Harbor. After training, they talk a bit about how Magnus will have to think on his toes while they eat lunch together. Then Annabeth and Percy drive off, heading back to New York. Magnus invites Alex to tag along to visit his uncle's mansion. He says yes, of course. In Back Bay, inside Randolph's mansion, they find a dead wolf. It was killed by a trap, and recently at that. Apparently, his uncle had left the mansion to Annabeth and Magnus, and specified in his will for Magnus to go through his papers. Magnus and Alex are searching the house for clues. On the roof, they find another wolf, this one still very much alive. They decide to let the wolf inside to see if it can point them in the right direction. It does, leading them to a drinking horn. Alex kills the wolf and they check inside the vessel to find a leather book. In it they find notes about a whetstone of Bolverk and other confusing clues like Old Norse words. They're interrupted by a raven delivering a message from TJ that they have to set sail ASAP. Magnus heads back to Valhalla while Alex goes to pick up Samira from school. They'll rendezvous with Magnus somewhere along their journey. Back in Hotel Valhalla, Magnus finds a note in his room from TJ, telling him to meet them at Dock 23 in the hotel. There he sees his hallmates, TJ, Mallory, and Halfborn Gunderson, as well as Helgi and Hunding, who have him sign out first. Then he takes a yellow handkerchief out of his bag that unfolds into a huge Viking longship that's also bright yellow. They catch the tide that rushes them downstream as they all try to hold on. Magnus slips into a vision of Loki aboard the Ship of the Dead.
He said it! He said it!
Naglfar. He tells Magnus to not listen to his uncle Randolph's plans and to leave Sam and Alex out of it. They arrive in Boston Harbor to pick up Alex and Samira. Amira is also there to see them off on their journey. Mallory and Halfborn also broke up recently and are arguing way more than usual. Mallory also mentions that a word in Randolph's notebook is mead, a Norse drink.
Coincidence? I think not!
Amir mentions that him and Samira are fasting for Ramadan. He says goodbye to her, and then they set sail. As they're going to meet Blitzen and Hearthstone, they're attacked by the 9 daughters of Aegir, who transport them into their father's cauldron. He shrinks down so they're inside a Viking hall, and they immediately claim guest rights. That's when Magnus notices that Blitzen and Hearthstone are being held captive.
Shit, here we go again.
Magnus signs to them not to say his name or else he will get killed. Then Samira tells the giants that she cannot eat elves or dwarves because it's Ramadan and she must also break her fast with them. As they're getting ready to sit down and have some mead, one of the giant sisters recognizes Magnus and notifies her fathers immediately. Magnus and friends are able to convince Aegir to think about killing him later after discussing mead. Magnus also learns from one of the giantesses that Bolverk was an alias of someone who stole Kvasir's mead, a mead that Aegir cannot brew. She also mentions that they don't like Loki since he bested Aegir in a flighting. Magnus convinces Aegir to allow them to escape after promising to best Loki in a flighting competition and use Kvasir's mead to win and bring some of the mead to Aegir.
What have you done?
Aegir agrees and goes to the kitchen, but he is not responsible for whatever his daughters do in his absence, so they begin to attack immediately. Magnus prays to Frey, his father, for help, and Njord appears to help instead. Hearthstone throws a Lagaz rune to help them escape on the Big Banana, their nickname for the Yellow Viking ship. Back above the ocean, Njord has saved them from decompression sickness, and they're now temporarily under his protection. Everyone goes below deck to rest and eat while Magnus, Hearthstone, and Blitz stay back to speak with the god of fishing and ships. After talking about his feat, he tells them to seek out his ex-wife Skathi, an ice giantess. He also tells Magnus about Kvasir and how they'll need his mead, but it might cost Hearth and Blitz their lives. He also explains that Bolverk was an alias of Odin that he used when stealing Kvasir's mead from the giants, but the only source left now is in the possession of the Jotun. Blitz and Hearth must seek out Bolverk's whetstone to defeat whatever is guarding the mead, so Njord sends them on their way. Then he tells Magnus to seek out the giant Hrungnir, who dwells in Jorvik, and to bring Alex Fierro along. The next 2 days are uneventful. Magnus talks with TJ, who recounts his death to him, how he couldn't turn down a personal duel as a son of Tyr and that's what got him killed. Then Magnus helps Alex train Samira to resist Loki using his sword Jack. When he reattaches the sword, he passes out having a dream vision.
Not again.
In it, Odin, Heimdall, and Frey and Kvasir were hunting down Loki after he insulted the gods in a fighting. Then he sees how Kvasir was murdered by the dwarves Fajalar and Gajalar. Then he sees the day Alex Fierro was kicked out of her home, her father yelling how she understood the art of pottery as well as her grandfather, but was still a disappointment. Magnus is woken up just as they arrive in York, England. Magnus, Alex, and TJ go ashore while Mallory, Halfborn, and Samira stay back to deal with the Vatnavetir, or water horses. Our heroes visit the Jorvik Viking Center, where they find the stone giant Hrungnir, who challenges them to a 2-on-2 duel. TJ accepts the challenge immediately, because of course, and Alex must make their second. She tells them they need to find a pottery studio, which they do on a street called the Shambles. As they're assembling a magical ceramic warrior, Magnus talks with Alex about how she knows how to do this. She explains her ancestral connection to the Tzatliko culture. They text Samira an update, who texts back that they're fighting water horses. The gang goes to grab dinner and rest for the night. Magnus has another dream vision, this time of Naglfar and Rim, the ship's Jotun captain. Then he sees Odin as Bolverk when he had the whetstone. He awakens to TJ eating a bagel and wearing strange glasses. He tells Magnus they're from Valhalla, so they're magic. Alex tells them her creation is ready. Pottery barn. Pronouns, they, them. And with that, they're off to duel.
It's time to duel.
They meet Hrungnir in King's Square and begin to battle. Pottery Barn is able to defeat the giant's own clay creation, and TJ defeats Hrungnir. Hrungnir then tells them to go to Flam in Norway before TJ stabs his heart and he explodes. Shrapnel embeds itself above TJ's eye, but there's no time to heal that as they flee back to the ship. They arrive back on deck, Mallory, Halfborn, and Samira having barely survived their encounter with the water horse spirits. Samira was able to even come out riding one in the end. They set sail down the river Ouse, and Mallory gets to telling Magnus about how she died, how Loki tempted her to plant the bomb, how an old hag gave her the knives she now wields, and how she died in the explosion she tried to stop. The appearance of Blitz and Hearth interrupts their convo. They need Magnus's help facing Hearthstone's father in Alfheim.
Shit, here we go again.
They arrive in Alfheim at Mr. Alderman's place. The cameras are dead, and there is a sign warning trespassers to stay away or die. They go around back, stopping at Andiron's memorial, where Hearth picks up his Othala rune, before continuing on towards the entrance of a cave. They camp outside it till Alfheim nightfall, enjoying a picnic courtesy of Hearth's Gebel rune. Finally, when Mr. Alderman comes out of the cave, he is in the form of a dragon, a side effect of the cursed ring of Andvari. He doesn't leave though, his paranoia causing him to retreat into his lair once again very quickly. Hearth says they have no choice but to kill him. They devise a plan where Magnus will crawl through some brownie tunnels to stab Mr. Alderman in the belly, the only way to kill a ring dragon. Hearth takes up the job of luring his father out of the cave. They rest until the next evening and enact the plan. Hearth uses a ghost of Andiron to get his father's attention, and when that doesn't work, Blitzen just straight up yells at Alderman, which works long enough for Magnus to stab at the chink in his armor and scurry out of the brownie tunnel to avoid being killed by acid. Blitz and Magnus go into the cave to find the whetstone. They also take the entire hoard, using a magical tote bag. They find Jack and Hearth working on cutting out the dragon's heart, to eat it of course.
What's that supposed to mean?
Blitz and Magnus return Andvari's treasure to his pond, and Blitz explains that Hearth has to eat the heart to inherit the dragon's memories and put its spirit to rest. As they're roasting the heart, and Hearth is explaining why he needs to do this, Magnus bungles the whole thing, dropping the heart into the fire, but not before trying to catch it and getting burning hot grease all over his hands. Instinctively, he licks his fingers and unintentionally tastes the dragon's blood. Hearth forgives Magnus, saying it was destiny. Magnus hears some birds talking, but doesn't say anything about it. Apparently now he can hear animals talking. Then they jump off a cliff and fall into Midgard into the big banana. They catch everyone up on what happened and go wash up and rest. Magnus awakens as they arrive in the fjords of Norway and dock in Flam. They agree to split up,
I think we should split up.
with Magnus, Mallory, and Samira on one team and Halfborn TJ and Alex on the other. While wandering around Flem, Mallory spots the old hag that she recognized in a knitting store. They tail her to the train station where they buy some tickets and board. They corner her in a booth and begin interrogating her. She tells them how she helped Mallory become a hero and get sent to Valhalla. Then she reveals herself to be Frigg, the queen of the Aesir, and Mallory's mother.
Who?
Frigg tells them they will need the whetstone to face the giant Balgi's thralls or slaves. She then shows them where they must go to fight them. Then she gives Mallory a walnut, telling her that it's meant to help imprison Loki if Magnus is able to beat him in a fighting. Then she vanishes in a spray of mist and our heroes jump out of a window of a moving train. They make their way across the valley floor towards the waterfall Frigg had guided them to. Beyond that and over a hill, they find the thralls, 9 enslaved Jotun. They talk with them, and the giants mention how they guard Suting's mead and his prisoner. Suting and Balgi are brothers, and they have imprisoned the giants to harvest a magical wheat field, but their blades are dull and rusted. Mallory gives them the idea to use the whetstone, demonstrating its use on their sides. They harvest the field in seconds, and Mallory tells them they can keep it, but only one of them. She tosses it into the air, and they run into each other to catch it, scythes still in hand, and all 9 giants die. They approach the iron doors the giants were guarding, but have no luck being able to open it. A voice inside tries helping, a giantess named Gunlad, daughter of Sutung. She says even her son Bragi, the god of poetry, couldn't free her after she was imprisoned for allowing Odin to steal Kvasir's mead. Gunlad tells them that if they can pry open the doors a bit to allow her some sunlight, she would be willing to siphon the last of the mead for them. They use Mallory's daggers, gifts from her mother, and are successful in getting it. But then Baugi and Suting show up.
Are you kidding me?
They split up, Samira and Mallory flying back to the ship, while Magnus stays behind and uses the aid of a murder of crows. One giant flies after Samira and Mallory, while the other stays behind to face Magnus. Magnus uses his new Disney princess powers to have the crows attack Suting long enough for Magnus to stab him, and then the giant impales himself on his own weapon. Magnus gives the crows the thralls' scythes as a reward for their help and begins his hike back to his friends. They again catch each other up on what happened, how Halfborn took down Bagi nearly by himself by going full berserker. They set sail into the sunset. In the morning, they arrive in Jotunheim, along the border of Niflheim. As they're nearly freezing to death in the realm of ice, they trek through the snow towards a black sand beach. Along the way, Alex kisses Magnus in case they die. Then they come across the home of the giantess Skathi, ex-wife of Njord, who invites them into her fortress.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
She advises them on how to defeat Loki and where the ship Naglfar is, and tells them they can rest in her fortress for the night. Magnus sleeps fitfully throughout the night. He awakens to Samira praying around dawn, and then Skathi awakens the others. They put on skis, courtesy of the giantess, and Magnus drinks Kvasir's mead before they pushed out the windows of the fortress. They ski downhill through a blizzard and arrive at a huge bay where the ship of the dead
He said it! He said it!
was docked. Blitz, Hearth, Mallory, TJ, and Halfborn agree to create a diversion to allow Alex, Samira, and Magnus the chance to get on board and challenge Loki to a fighting. Hearth gives Magnus an Othala rune, as it also symbolizes aid on a journey. They split up and Magnus tosses the rune, rendering Alex, Samira, and him invisible. As they climb aboard, they're tempted by their loved ones in Helheim, but Samira is able to help keep them going. They make it aboard as the other teams attack, distracting the giants and undead soldiers. But then they turn invisible at the worst possible time, and they had to fight their own enemies as well. Magnus then summons a piece of freight to disarm and momentarily distract the enemy. Loki appears, and Magnus challenges him to a fighting, but Loki says no.
Are you kidding me?
Samira goes to attack, but then Captain Hrym yells for everyone to stop. He says since he is technically in command of the ship, Loki must prove his worth in a fighting, and so the contest of insults begins. Loki starts off with the upper hand, easily dissing Magnus in every possible way. But Magnus gets the idea to uplift his friends by insulting Loki, by singing his friends' praises and describing the people that make Magnus who he is.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Loki is made to feel alone and bitter by the end, enough so that Mallory is able to throw the walnut, capturing the Chaos God like a Pokemon. Then Captain Hrim apologizes, because even though they won, the army will have to kill them now. Our heroes fight through the enemy horde, but are quickly cornered along the edge of the ship. The enemy readies cannons, and Magnus protests that that's not fair. Vikings didn't have cannons.
They couldn't afford station wagons either.
Nice paneling.
Tells them to jump, and they do, landing in the water aboard Vatnavetir, the same one Samira encountered in York. They flee towards the waters of Jotunheim, where they sail west for 3 days as they rest and recuperate. Magnus talks to Alex about his compliment towards her in the fighting. She tells him she needs space, but she is flattered that he'd like the kiss and likes her. On the 3rd day, they arrive at Vigridir, the last battlefield, where the gods and giants are destined to fight the final battle at Ragnarok. Waiting there are the gods. Frigg, Heimdall, Thor, and Sif. TJ even gets to meet his dad finally, Tyr. Odin, Freya, and Frey are there too, all to congratulate the kids on their job well done. Odin corrals everyone to a tent to discuss the fate of all living things.
What's that supposed to mean?
There, Odin rewards them by allowing the living members of their party to continue living, and he gives Magnus a special boon before dropping off everyone in Valhalla. Amir is waiting there, a special guest allowed in just for Samira, and they've arrived on the last day of Ramadan. Amir asks Samira if she'd like to come over for Eid al-Fitr. She says yes, and Alex agrees to chaperone them. Magnus doesn't want him to leave, but he deals with it.
Gay!
Magnus and the others go celebrate in the feast hall. Then he goes back to his room to change for the evening. Alex shows up. He tells Magnus he wants to help with his proposal involving Uncle Randolph's mansion. Then he kisses Magnus and teases him before leaving.
2 weeks later.
Magnus calls Annabeth to let her know that things went well as his plans for the family mansion. It cheers her up. She recently got some bad news on her end, and she promises they'll talk soon.
2 weeks later.
After another 2 weeks, Magnus and friends are ready to open the Chase Mansion as a homeless youth shelter. Hearth and Blitz move in to help run the place. Alex and Magnus appear from time to time to also help out. And finally, Magnus and Alex are sort of officially dating. With that, we leave our heroes to rest and live their lives to their fullest. I love the way everyone in this series got their little character development moments throughout this book. Magnus and Alex, with their little back and forth of will they, won't they, was very cute. It's just nice to see stories where trans people are wanted and loved and respected. I like the way Magnus grew in this book as well, learning to accept the ever-changing nature of life and to celebrate the time he has now with his loved ones. Samira, my favorite child, I admire her so much in this book. Her dedication, her unwavering faith, her courageousness, and she grew so much too. Nothing like the Valkyrie we first met. She has truly come to accept who she is and what that means. That's all I have to say. Tell me some of your thoughts in the comments below, and while you're at it, leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Catch you all in the next one. Bye!
Bye!